Cool. So before I switch over, for those of you who haven't tuned in before, we have implemented this new, section to EDM tips. We're doing live feedback every Friday on the Feedback Friday threads that we post, I guess, Thursday in the States. It's Friday if you're overseas. But yeah, so I'll be, jumping on every single week. I'll be reviewing these threads. Obviously, we don't have enough time to get through every single track. There are so many submissions every single week right now. But I have a running list of it. So if we don't get to you one week, you're going to be on that priority list for next week. So that's the way I've built out today. So if you're tuning in, if you didn't get feedback on your track last week and you're a little disappointed, don't worry. I've got some of your tracks pulled up first. We're going to get to your guys' stuff before we even advance through the rest of the thread, and we're gonna just keep that going every single week. So if you don't make it this one time, tune in next week, and almost guaranteed you're gonna be on that one. See a few other people. What's going on, Neve? We got Jack, and we got, let's see, another Mike Whitebeard here. How you guys doing? I'm stoked. Let's dive straight in, guys. So should be able to see my screen here, and with this first track, I've got this little track, I think, by Soundflare. It's a demo, own vocals for now. Was it something I said? So really quickly, just before we get too far, how's the audio and image quality? Is everything working okay for you guys? Is it all nice and smooth? Yeah, all good. Sweet. Good to know. Oh no, Mike, sorry to hear that the Twitch isn't working on your iPhone there. Hopefully get that sorted out here soon. All right, sweet. Well, we should have audio and everything set up and working here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing we did last week. I'll start by playing a little bit of the track. I got some. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate the compliments on the shirt. I'm going to, give my feedback on it. But, we had some people request just a little bit longer time spent on each track. So I'm going to do my best to, actually, instead of, like 30 seconds, I'm going to give us like a solid minute for every single track. And I'm going to do, as much as we can to make sure that you guys are hearing, all these details. So with that, I'll go ahead and play this first one. Again, we got Soundflare. Was it something I said? Let's see what we got. Great groove.
Every day it's been through my mind. I cannot get you out of here. How is it possible that you survive? Will you never die? And I don't know what I have to do to get some peace back inside. Will you join me again tonight? Will you make me fly?
Yeah. Really, really great vibe. Completely agreed, Mike. Yeah, love for the vocals. Got a little bit something like the Killers here. All right, let's talk a little bit about this one. So really, really great vibe, really great groove right from the start. That was like one of the first things I noticed in this track is it got me moving. The shakers or, all that extra percussion was tapped right in, that rhythm guitar that comes in, all sitting right in the pocket with each other. So important, guys, when when you're working on music, if you want people to dance to your music, the number one thing that drives that danciness is the groove, right? So all of this timing is, perfectly in line with each other. So really, really good stuff here. Yeah, I got a couple more people in the chat saying, yeah, loving the Killers vibe. Absolutely. So let's talk about, what could be improved here, how we can make this even stronger. So I know this is a demo and, these are your own vocals for now. I don't know if you plan on using your own voice or working with someone else. I think you've got potential in your voice, there's a good amount of passion in there. And that's the thing that we can't change as producers, in the production seat, we have the ability to, edit pitch, take out noise, fix breaths, all that sort of stuff. What we can't do is communicate like authenticity or truth. And I hear that in this, right? So if you work with your own vocals, which I would say, give it a real shot, focus on just heightening them up a little bit. So don't get me wrong, these things are really great, but I'm hearing a little bit of noise, some extra breathiness kind of carry over in between phrases. And then a big thing that's going on is you have a lot of this like reverb and, echo on that vocal. And what's happening is that the noise, those breaths are also, spilling over into the reverb. And that ends up washing out the vocal itself just a little bit at times. Let's see if we can, find a moment where that happens.
To get some peace back inside, will you join me again tonight?
So what we hear is like, especially on those any of those like plosives, those sibilants, any time we hear like the tss, any of those sorts of sounds, all of that's just kind of carrying over a little bit. So this does take some attention to detail, but what you're really going to want to do is get in there and automate some of your, reverb and delays and that sort of stuff so that it's not spilling over quite as much. Oh, okay, sweet. So this is yeah, Jack Parker. So plan to sing eventually again. Yeah, absolutely. By all means, dive in, sing, try out your voice. For those of you that are familiar with the Chainsmokers, you might have heard one of them started singing. I think it was Drew of them started singing on their tracks. And if you've ever heard him actually sing live or anything, trust me, if he can do it and he can make a pop song, so can you guys. If it's something that interests you, give it a shot. Try singing, get in, work around the tuning sort of stuff. Take multiple takes and piece them together to get, those perfect sounding takes. And yeah, there's a lot of potential there. So really good stuff. If anyone else has anything they'd like to add, any, constructive feedback or anything else, drop it in the chat. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. Seeing John was saying, yeah, Calvin Harris and Marsh also do a lot of their own vocals. Absolutely. You guys would be surprised at how many people do their own vocals. Really, the deepest thing about getting a vocal to work is that emotion, right? So if you can't like really sing and hit pitch, don't worry, neither can I. It's okay, right? Just sing with your heart out, get that emotion across, and then worry about the pitching afterwards. All right. Oh man, so sorry to hear that, Mike. Yeah, hopefully we can get that up soon for you. Otherwise, we are going to be recording these. We'll push this up on Monday for you too, so hopefully you can tune in there. All right, with this next one, we got Westlake 72, the West Side Angel on the dance floor. Do it. So hey, I'm about to dive in. If you guys are in the chat and your track comes up and there's like a specific part of the song you want me to listen to, give me that timestamp and I'll skip ahead. Otherwise, I'll typically start from the start, maybe jump ahead, see how it is. Yeah, what's up, Glibber Music? Welcome to the stream. Sweet stuff. Again, right with the groove. This is like super solid. Gets me dancing right from the start. That groove is just so tight the entire time through. Good stuff there. Pretty solid job on the mix here too. Everything's sitting in its own space. Yeah, the vocal fits really perfectly. Completely agree, Jono. Nice little echo right there wherever I just skipped to. Awesome. All right, so super cool track. Again, killer groove, guys. Clear you guys are picking up on this stuff. You guys are all working with each other, getting good feedback from each other, because these are just consistently really, really tight. Let's start, right from the beginning, talk about what's working. So in this groove, right from the beginning, I know it's just a DJ mix-in, but like I said, it gets me dancing right from the start. The reason is not only do we have like a nice up and down between the, that low end thumpy kick and then the high end hi-hat that's hitting up there. So we get a boom, boom, clap sort of thing that takes us up and down. But really the groove is coming from these, 16th notes in between those hits, those little percussive hits. Right? It's like da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, right? Those like little extra hits in there. That's where our groove comes from. Now, when you get into this little section here, I actually lose a little bit too much movement for a couple of things. One, when we first get into this transition, the only extra movement besides that bass line is that kind of white noise, and it doesn't really have much of a groove to it. It's a very steady flow. Now, while that makes for a really nice transition and a smooth transition, it does take away a lot of the movement here. And at this point in the song, you know, even if starting it out, it'd be kind of tough to get people to dance. And, you know, I see that you've got a mix in here, so, it, you know, and the move is on the dance floor. So the whole idea is that people are really kind of dancing through and through. So I try out, you know, instead of just a standard, you know, like a shh sort of white noise, maybe find one that has a little bit of rhythm to it, like a shh, right? That sort of thing that keeps up a little bit of that extra motion in there. And then when these other percussion hits start coming in right around here. So it's, you know, those are pretty solid here. I think even earlier, let's see. Right, so it's coming in like the da 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 da. And a lot of those hits align with the bass. And as a result, we aren't necessarily doing anything to improve and increase the groove and danciness with that new layer. It's just kind of reinforcing that bass. Which, don't get me wrong, like it can be a nice texture, but I think in this section of the song in particular, we need to increase that danciness. So get another percussive line in there. Like perhaps maybe you can take one of the percussion layers from this section and just kind of keep it going, maybe filtered out or something. Something that just gets moving a little bit more. Right, so it has that little bit of extra motion. Something like that could work. Seeing a couple of suggestions in the chat from Glibber saying, yeah, really beat you 5, maybe a little bit more high frequency. I think like the overall high frequency balance is pretty solid because that hi-hat's hitting really strong, but I do agree. I think we could get more high frequencies in general, especially on the sides of the mix and those strings and some of those other elements and stuff. So see if you can, you know, like add some high-end boosting EQ to those strings, those background atmospheres, pretty much anything but, you know, those hi-hats that, and you know, the vocal, because I think those are sitting pretty solid. And then John was suggesting some strings during the breakdown. Yeah, give it a shot. I think that could work out. And absolutely 21st is saying your best track yet, Dan. Oh man, that's quite the praise. Good stuff. And I would agree. I love this. This thing's got a vibe. It's got a good groove. It has some good kind of flow to it, from what I can tell. Let's give it up here for Dan Westlake. Good stuff here on the dance floor. All right, cheers everyone. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. So for this next one, we got Johnny Cabrillo, and I hope I'm saying your names right. If I'm not, you know, don't hesitate to jump into the chat and give me some trash. Tell me, hey, you know, Neil, that's not how you say my name. I want to be doing these correct for sure. But yes, we got Johnny Cabrillo here, you and the latest 115. So let's see what we got going on with this track. Yeah, sure thing, Dan. Vibe.
You were there when I was here, feeling like this. You say you can. You take down, don't have to pretend. Now you want me, cause you don't care. I don't need friends. If I tell you something, begins to thinking about you. If I tell you something, begins to thinking about you.
Thanks for the heads up. Sorry about that. Should be fixed now. Yeah, been there for sure. Got it worked out. I'm giving him just a little longer since I kind of screwed up the start of the audio here. Let's listen a little bit longer. I'm gonna skip ahead here. Nice little moment there. All right. Okay, so really cool track, guys. Thanks for jumping on that, chat. Letting me know right away. Glad we got that fixed. All right, so I think really what this is all about, like this track, what's working for it is all about the vibe. You know, your sound design, the emotion that we're hearing in the vocal, the texture of those drums, the background atmospheres and stuff. They're all working really, really, really nicely together. You know, your sound selection's on point here. Um, I think, yeah, what Grundy Stomper just said here in the chat really hits it on the head. Great vibe. I keep expecting an explosive release, though. And I think that really is it, is I kind of like was stuck in that, like, you know, vibey sort of section, waiting for just a little bit more energy. I think the reason why I was wanting a little bit more energy there was because, you know, those drums have a lot of rhythm and a lot of texture to them. It suggests a decent amount of movement, you know, kind of like a fast pace, like it could be like a running style track or something. But the rest of the instruments were pretty filtered out, and we were lacking a lot of high end energy in those.
If I tell you something,
Like especially dun, 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 those little plucks that are coming on the sides. I think if you can get some extra brightness to them, either some high end saturation with a little bit of grit to it, or just, you know, some high end, you know, EQ boosting with like a coloring EQ that could bring out some nice tones to it. I think that'll help give that, you know, this track the energy that we were really looking for. Let's see, a couple of other things. Said before, reminds me of the 90s Matrix tune and Massive Attack. Yeah, Jack, yeah, absolutely. Definitely has a little bit of that, you know, kind of older vibe and stuff. I think that works really nicely in your favor because it pulls from that nostalgia sense. It gives people that vibe. I think the thing that we need to do then is focus on the mix here and really get things to pop and sound like a modern production. Right. So that, you know, that the kind of big thing to do in this, you know, in this kind of space is take those retro sounds, take that retro kind of songwriting, but make it sound really, you know, like fresh, really polished, kind of like, you know, a remastered version of a track might. And that's where, you know, really the demand is for in these tracks now. So spend some time, focus on getting, you know, those elements that just pop a little bit more, whether it be through, you know, some saturation, some coloring compression, maybe some excitation or something else of the sorts. But yeah, I think that's going to be, you know, the biggest win for you here. Seeing from Silent 20 asking me if I'm Dutch, presumably because of that Holland flag. I am not Dutch, no. I am born and raised here in the States, but I did spend an entire summer in Maastricht in the Netherlands. Absolutely loved it there. Have been back a few times since, and, you know, absolutely hope to have a little cottage there someday. I'm just in love with the country and, you know, in the culture there. All right, sweet. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Let's give it up for Johnny in the chat here. I think, you know, got a lot of love. People are saying, you know, this is an absolute just like sex track. Absolutely agree, Silent. Really, really strong vibes here. So good stuff, Johnny. All right, so for this next one, we've got Nebuchad and Sun United. Really cool artwork here. This definitely sets a vibe for sure right off the start without even hearing anything. All right, let's see what we got. I'll go ahead and play it through.
What would I do without you in my life? You blew my mind, you stole my eyes. I don't wanna leave, please keep me on your side. Oh, yeah. You showed me a new path when I was going down. You gave me your light, now I'm going too high. Yeah, I don't wanna leave, I won't give up on you.
Lots of good open space in this track, and I think honestly the simplicity of your arrangement is working in your favor here.
Love me now, love my life. You blew my mind. Love me now. It's flying so high, so love me now. Love me now, love me now. It's flying so
Ooh, cool.
now.
All right, so really, really pretty track here. I think that, you know, the vibes are very easy to get lost in. I think your sound selection, kind of like that last track, is, you know, really, really on point. It sets us in that emotional vibe, and it keeps us there the entire track. Completely agree, Glibber here. Yeah, feels like I'm floating. Absolutely. Your reverb, the amount of, you know, reverb and, you know, kind of space you have on that is all lending towards that. Couple of things that I think I would like, you know, a little bit more. Yeah, completely agree, Grundle Stomper there. Variance is the first thing that I was going to bring up. As I kind of skip through these sections, you know, I noticed at a couple of points like that, those drums did push out, but, you know, for the most part, I heard like a very consistent drum rhythm in there, a very consistent amount of atmosphere. and that kind of guitar track through it. So just, at certain points throughout this track, try to strip that stuff away, maybe find some other elements that you could put in its place that, could, and, just keep the listener on their toes, switch it up a little bit, and also, help develop that story a little bit more. So with a song like this, where it is so focused on the vocals and, the lyrics, I'm sure as well, what we need to do is, create a little bit of evolution, right? Like any good story, any good movie has change. It has that evolution in the scenery and the details and what's actually happening. And we want a degree of that in our music as well. So, look, maybe during your chorus sections or something, you introduce a new element that has a little bit more thickness or energy to it. Now, past that, I think, so yeah, the number one thing, create that variation, focus on that. I think the other thing, one thing that I'm just like really hearing in here is that I think we could use some just bass of some sorts. And it doesn't need to be like a big hefty sub bass or anything else of the sorts. But right now, the mix is kind of skewed towards that high end for the most part, and I would have liked to hear something in that kind of low end to give us a floor. And even if it's like pretty quiet and stuff, like that'll allow us to still keep that floaty atmosphere, that floaty vibe, and that sort of stuff. But giving us that low end will just give us that, that little bit of weight that allows this track to feel full. And then the final thing I would say is add a little bit of saturation just kind of across the board. The mix was really, really pretty, really, really nice and, atmospheric. But, it lacked a little bit of that body, a little bit of that thickness. So just try saturating, maybe a little bit on the master channel, but then definitely some on, the individual tracks through and through. Great stuff with this. Good writing, good vibes, good sound selection. Again, guys, let's hear it in the chat for Nebuchad here. And let's keep it going. Let's keep this train rolling. All right. So with this next one, we got Neve here with Air. I know Neve, you've been crushing it in the Feedback Fridays for a while, so stoked to actually hear one of these and give you some live feedback here. I think I saw you in the chat as well. So yeah, if there's a certain section of this song that you want us jumping towards, let us know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and get started from the beginning, and we'll dive in from there. Right off the bat, Neve, I can say that, like, since the last time I heard your stuff, you've gotten a lot cleaner in your productions. Comes a trance banger, all right. I don't want to see what's going on here, so I'm gonna skip ahead to like this little middle section. Build here. Yeah, I completely agree with everything that people are saying in the chat. Your improvement is, night and day from the last time I heard something. Like, really, really great work. Keep that going. Awesome. All right. Yeah, lovely stuff indeed. This track definitely makes me happy for sure. So, let's start out with some of the things that are definitely working for you. I think, you really stripped back the complexity of your tracks. Like previously I was hearing, a lot of different layers sitting on top of each other. Now I'm hearing, a couple of different layers that are all working together. So everything that you have in there does seem to serve a very intentional purpose, and it's all working very well. I think, another big thing is just like the melodic and harmonic foundation here. Like those chords were very pleasing. It sounded really nice with that bass. It has a good kind of evolution to the progression and stuff. Now, in terms of some things that we could probably improve a little bit, I would agree with Milesy Music here, who says, yeah, that snare could use a little bit more, maybe some more reverb. I would agree, just, saturate that thing, add, maybe a little bit of like reverb with a tiny bit of pre-delay specifically to it to give us a really big sense of space. Now, when we use pre-delay, the use of pre-delay and a reverb allows us to basically, hint to the listener that the back of that room is further away. Because what that pre-delay simulates is how long it takes for that reverb to bounce off of that back wall and really kind of start kicking in. So yeah, some snare with a little bit of extra reverb with some pre-delay on it is going to give us that really big sense of space that's important for this type of track. Another area I think I'd focus on is a little bit of the mix at this point, specifically in your low end. I was noticing that, like, among the various sequencer layers, the bass and the kick and, kind of everything going on, that we did have a little bit of buildup and mud going on, like in everything below probably 250 hertz or so. Let's see if we can hear that here. Like, I'm not getting a super clear understanding of what that low end should be. So I would look and see, in some of your less important elements, do you have excess low end information that's going on in there? Or if you have multiple bass layers, like, do they all need to be in there at the same time? Or is there a way that we can kind of EQ them out? And if not, like, if this is all kind of coming from just one or two layers and it's just like the layer itself is a little bit muddy, then I would either focus on trying to find a slightly different synth patch or different layer, something that you can tighten up the ADSR a bit with, or jump in with an EQ, do some kind of aggressive but precise cutting down in that kind of like 80 hertz to 250 hertz range, and that should clear up a lot of that low end mud as well. John was suggesting maybe add another plug. Yeah, definitely consider adding it in there. Now, I would say if you are going to add it, it will need to serve a different purpose than what's currently going on in there. So it'll either need to be in a different octave, in a different part of the stereo field, or carry a different pattern. So maybe not something that's going like as fast as your main sequencer, but instead plays a little bit of a slower melody. The final thing that I'll kind of add to this is that I would like to hear a little bit more kind of variation throughout the track. And I know we didn't hear the full thing, but even in the sections that I heard, I'd like to hear like occasionally one of those, ARP patterns or those, synth kind of sequencer patterns play just like one or two notes a little bit different. So instead of just going like da 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 as an example, like maybe it goes da 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 da, right? And you just hit one extra note that keeps the listener on their toes, that gives them a little bit of that variation. But not too much, because we want them to, still stay comfortable. We want them to have a degree of expectation there. All right, great stuff. Let's give it up for you, Neve. I think, we already saw it in the chat. Great improvement. Keep that going. Keep up the effort. Yeah, really, really solid vibe here. All right. How you guys doing so far? We're about halfway through. We still got a decent number of tracks. Everyone good? Staying alive? Absolutely. Hell yeah. Awesome. Let's get into it. We got Mike Beastcoat here, M16 Double Master. Let's see what we got going on. Nice opening up of the sounds here for sure. Definitely has some Cascade vibes to it for sure, Jack. What's going on, Claudio? Awesome. All right, Mike, let's break this thing down. So, as always, we'll start with what's working well here. I think your chord progression, your harmonic writing, all of that sort of stuff, really, really solid. Like, we're following, I think those four chords of pop, that 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, and, the elements that you've chosen to reinforce that are all working well together. I think it's, it's very pleasing. We have a good, very inspiring and emotional, progression and composition as a result. I think, the core, like, types of sounds and where you place them from a horizontal arrangement perspective here are also working pretty well. I think there was, a really nice build up in energy, kind of a revealing of elements here. And then, later on in the track, I had that, full motion. I heard those R players in with those chords, with the full drums and everything. So really good, job building out this track. I think a couple of things that can take this, really to that next level. Starting with this intro and stuff. when we have these types of intros that really slowly bring things in, while that can be great at, giving us a really nice smooth energy map, the risk is that we don't capture the attention of the listener quite enough from the very start. Nowadays, with people's attention spans where they are with the availability of music on streaming platforms, we really have to hook them right from the very start of a track with some type of interesting texture. Right, so right here, like, I think some things that could add, maybe get like a little downlift or an impact to start the track off, like a sort of thing that like just like gives a little bit more movement, gives a little bit more away from the start, and then you can pull that away, bring them down low in that energy and kind of bring them up over time. But like right from that very start, we gotta jump on it. Seeing from Cloudy in the chat saying the lead sounded more like pads than a lead synth here. Let's find a quick moment. And I think I would have to agree. Those leads have a really nice melody to them, but I think they just have too much reverb on them. If you just dial back the percentage of your reverb kind of across the board on those leads, they're going to come forward in the mix and really kind of stand out and really show the listener, hey, this is what you should be paying attention to. This is what you should be singing back if you're feeling like singing. Another big thing with this track, I think, same thing as that previous track that we were looking at, I think a couple of songs ago. I think we just need to focus on adding some bass and some weight to this track. If I play through any section here, like that kick has a really nice kind of low end. Yeah, you're seeing it. Perfect timing there, Mike. Yeah, didn't really add a bass line. Doesn't need it. Exactly that. Way to beat me to it, to be honest. Yes, I would say get a bass line in there, specifically a sub bass for like this style of track where we have a lot of high end atmosphere and weight and stuff. It's so important that we establish a really good, strong bass line down there. And I mean that like both as like BASSLINE and like the BASE sort of thing. Like it gives us that floor, it gives us something strong to kind of sit the rest of the mix on top of. The final thing that I think I'll add in here is I'd like to hear a little bit more groove and movement in the drums. They sound like they're just a little bit on grid here. Yeah, so if you could just add a tiny, tiny bit more kind of swing or motion to them, I think that'll help out a lot. All right. Let's give it up for Mike here. And with that, we'll just keep it going. We'll move on to this next track, see how far we can get. All right, so we got one from Fat Freddy, DJ and producer here, Sphinx Finale. Let's see what's going on. Wait, was that your first track? No way, Mike. That's really good for a first track. Absolutely, I would not have expected that. Yeah, really, really solid job there. Oh, hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's just let's give it up twice for Mike for that. If that's your first track, keep it going. You got something to you for sure. My first track did not sound like that, let me tell you guys that. All right, let's see what we got from Fat Freddy here. Got a little bit of a mix in, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead here. Really good low end on this one. Like this one has that weight that I'm looking for sure. Great groove through and through here. That might have been a little bit of a sudden transition, but I think as a whole, you're really close. Let's skip ahead and see what's kind of going on in this break and then in these final sections. Awesome. All right. Yeah, really, really strong track here. I think we're saying in the chat, I completely agree. The kick and the low end is like really what's making this track work. You're getting people going. Not only does it have a good kind of mix and power and weight to it, the textures and the actual sonic vibe of that is perfectly in line for like this kind of like, you know, Egyptian deserty sort of vibe. Also completely agree. Really good timbre on the lead there. Or timbre, you know, if you want to say it correctly here, technically speaking. And what's up, Dylan? Welcome to the stream here. So yeah, really good textures, really good vibe. That low end, oh my god, that low end so strong. Now let's talk about some things that we could kind of improve here. So I think I kind of said it at this moment, and looking across the board, I'd say really your transitions are kind of the biggest thing to focus on. Right here, I felt myself wanting like a really big build up in energy prior to getting into the kind of full, you know, moment of the drop there. But I think all we really got was like a little bit of a riser and stuff. So see if you can, you know, try to actually program some writing into creating a build. So for example, like get like a snare roll, like a da 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 sort of thing coming in there. Maybe like, you know, add an extra little turnaround or a little bit of flourish to that, you know, that bass sound that's coming in here. Or yeah, that da 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 sort of thing. Like give it, it's just like its own kind of you know, moment. Seeing from Jack suggesting also give that background its own moment for a little bit. Yeah, I would agree. Let's see if there's anything like over here. Okay, so I think we do get a little bit of that here. So I'd say you're probably fine with just having this one section. You know, I completely agree. You know, Jack, we didn't listen to that, so great comment there. But I think because that's there, we're gonna end up being okay here. Let's see. The final thing that I'll say, so this lead that comes in at this drop here. It's so close. No, not you're bad at all, Jack. That was a great comment. We hadn't heard that section. There's no way you would have known that in the slightest. So anyways, this lead right here, it's so close to fitting the groove, and I think the rhythm is right, but it's coming in just a little bit behind the beat from everything else. And then like that actual hit right there that we just heard comes in a little bit ahead of the beat. So double check the kind of timing of those notes. What I would suggest is like turn off that lead for a section and like loop it for yourself, listen to that groove, feel that rhythm, and then add that lead back in and see if you can kind of identify where those moments aren't quite aligning. Yeah, I think other than that, this thing's working really, really, really well. The final things to focus on are just a little bit kind of more beef in the upper elements and the mid-range elements across the board. I think your bass is so strong that it almost like overshines the rest of your mix. So maybe add a little bit of extra presence, a little bit of extra saturation to those kind of upper end elements, and I think you'll be in a golden spot. Let's give it up for Fat Freddy. Killer track, killer vibe. Definitely fits the artwork. Definitely tapped into that. So great stuff there. All right. So this next one is from J Moss Mao. Nice. And it's Call Me Later here. So let's see what we got going on. A little bit of mixing, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead here. Good little vibe here for sure. Great rhythm, great textures through and through. Yeah, I completely agree, Dylan. The tropical percussion fits it really well. Mike, are you talking about like that like bass sound, that like the rah rah sort of sound that's coming in there, or something else? Yeah. So what you're hearing there is just the detuned wave. It's definitely not just like a basic wave. Like you won't be able to get it from just a saw wave or just a square wave or something. It's got a little bit of texture somewhere between those two. But just two detuned waves. So just like, in Serum, having two voices with a little bit of detune and then filtering out that high end, and that's gonna give you that sound. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, great track here. J Moss here, Maudib. So I think the biggest things that are working about this for you is you've done a really good job with keeping it simple yet effective. This mix is not overcomplicated, and as a result, there is so much space between all the various elements, and I can hear everything super clearly. This is the recipe for like a great track that gets people going, that is able to connect with people, because it doesn't take much for them to digest, right? They can show up at a club, they can show up on the dance floor, have never heard this track before, and understand it relatively quickly. So it's great for getting people, on that dance floor, getting that vibe going, getting that energy going, especially for DJs. I think it's like a particularly good style track to kind of open the night with. Couple of things about it that I think that we could do to make it a little bit stronger. Let's see. I think with a lot of those kind of melodic elements, even though they're spaced out like really wonderfully from a writing perspective, they are kind of living in like the center area of the mix, right around there. See if you can maybe add some stereo width to them, do some panning, maybe even some automation on that, just to give it a little bit of extra movement. And normally I'm going to actually suggest against doing too much, automation and movement on panning sort of stuff, because it can become pretty distracting to the listener. But in this style track, where the writing itself is relatively simple, we're able to get away with more, right? That's why some of these effects and these cool like little blips and bleeps and bloops and stuff that you have coming in there work so well. Is like they're super textured, they would take a lot of attention from the listener, but they come in at a moment where we need that little bit of a distraction because we've been hearing, that simplicity kick in. So yeah, focus on, creating a little bit more width in there. What else would I say here? Let's see. I would like to hear just like a little bit more variation, I think, across this track. Like I think there was a very constant motif of like a boom, wah, boom, wah sort of sound to it. And like, we had different notes, slightly different textures and stuff. That was kind of a consistent theme throughout this. Maybe consider if you can like see if you can find out about writing a section that maybe has a little bit more of an active bass line. So like a do wah 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 sort of thing. That gets that energy going a little bit more, so that this track has a little bit more ebb and flow to it from start to finish. If anyone has anything else that they could think of, any constructive feedback for J Moss here, drop it in the chats. Hans Zimmer Bois, absolutely. All right, yeah, let's give it up for Jay here. Great track, great vibe. Yeah, just keep leaning into that. Fill it out a little bit more, spread it out, beef it up, and I think you're going to be golden. All right. This next one's from, let's see if I can say this, Ananeko, hopefully. This one's Gray to Green version 2, mixed but not mastered. Awesome. All right. So, with that, I'll be really paying attention to the mix for this one, really more than anything. We can kind of dive into how we might be able to get some more separation, that sort of stuff. Let's see what we got. Yeah, really cool intro here for sure. What's cool here is that the groove has kind of changed on us a couple of times, but in a way that works. Like it's evolving. It's not like switching up. I'm like subtly changing the way I'm dancing and moving, but overall I stay kind of on that macro beat. So really good job with that. Before I move forward, let's just talk about one thing that's really working for this track. What I want you guys to listen to is pay attention to the rhythm of the chords versus the timing of the kick here. So the chords are da 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 da, and the kick doesn't perfectly align with them near the end. We get this like extra little bit of a tiny turnaround between the chords and the kick. It's da 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 da, right? With that kick comes in right after that second to last chord hit. And they're not perfectly aligned, right? Like the kick and the chord are not hitting on top of each other. It's like the chord hits and then that kick hits just a fraction after. And that's what gives us this groove. That's what gives us this movement, is having them hit just off of that pocket of each other. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this mix. Yeah, sweet. You put a lot of emphasis into that. Absolutely. Sweet stuff. Okay, so this mix, I think your frequency balance is really strong. You know, it's very smooth across the board. It works well at low volumes, and I can see this working really well at high volumes as well. So good balance of those elements from that frequency perspective. I think the biggest thing that you'll want to focus on is creating a little bit more space in the mix. So spreading things out a little bit wider, and then also giving us a little bit more front to back depth. Now, in terms of the wideness, the biggest thing for me was like those sustained chords, any of your harmonic and tonal elements. A lot of that was like in the center of the mix, and you did a good job balancing them against each other and EQing and stuff, so that we're not getting conflict in the mix. Like, it's not like they're fighting against each other by any means. We just aren't quite making as good of use and, like, you know, as full of use of that space as we can be, right? So with that, I would say focus on adding some stereo with thickening up all of those kind of harmonic layers. The other thing is that actually will give us a little bit more space for that vocal to come through and cut through when it does come in there. On that kind of clap or that snare, whatever that sound is, it's kind of like a hybrid of those two. I would add a decent amount of saturation to that. I think that thing just needs to be really, really thick and full, and even consider, you know, maybe add another layer in there that has another clap with a little bit more of a flam to it. For those of you who don't know, like, that flam is when you hear like multiple transients, so it's not just like a single clap, it's like a, I can't do this with one hand, but like a ba-da-da sort of thing, like where you hit a couple of times. That sort of thing is going to sound really thick, it's going to sound full, and it'll help give you this sense of a really big sense of space, especially if you find a nice and wide sample there. All right. Yeah, great stuff. Sure thing there. Okay, Rogerson there. Thanks for chiming in. If anyone else has anything else they're wanting to, you know, comment on it, any other productive, you know, any other productive comments, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, let's keep it going. We got about 10 minutes left or so. Let's see how many of these we can make it through. So this next one's from Conway, and I think I saw Dylan here in the chat for sure. Dylan, stoked to take a listen to this. Let us know if there's like a certain moment in this track that we should, you know, kind of move forward into. And otherwise, let's just start it out. Before I do anything else, let's talk about that intro, because that was perfect. That was exactly what I was looking for, right? We didn't just have that guitar come in, and it wasn't just like a tone. We had that like atmospheric splash right from the very start that has a lot of movement, has a lot of texture to it. Let's hear that again. Man, see that noise, that shh.
In my mind, there's a space where you used to be. Can you wait?
I'd like a little bit more volume on that vocal. I think that could stand out in space a little bit more.
Is it enough to keep me?
Right now, like, the guitars are coming out further in front of us than the vocal is. That's a combination of volume and reverb. Great sub drop. I'm gonna take that back. Listen to this sub drop. This is beautiful.
Away from you. Away from you. Away from you. Away from
beautiful. All right, let's get straight to it here. Completely agree with everyone in the chat. Super beautiful. And let's start out with Jack's comment because I completely agree here. Little bit stronger bass, and it's not necessarily like the sub bass because your sub bass is really nice and strong. We have a really good floor. What I'm missing is like this section of the mix, kind of like in that low mid range. And I think it's due to a couple of things. One, you know, your sub bass is really loud, and we don't really have a mid range kind of bass. And the other big thing is that those chords are sitting in an upper octave range. Now, I would bet if we looked at those, they're probably centered around the C4. In general, those chords are going to carry a little bit more power and weight if we have them centered around the C3. Now, that can really change up the vibe, just shifting everything down an octave. So what I would suggest, Dylan, try out some mid-range bass or maybe some mid-range chord layers that fill in some of those like low-mid notes that we're currently not quite getting as much on. The second thing I want to chat about is actually what Claudio just dropped in the chat here. I want to hear a little bit more rhythm in the drop. Now, I think that the actual writing and like, you know, the pace of your drums is really solid here. Let's see. All right, like we have that simple da, 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 da. And I think that actually works really well. Like that choice of that particular rhythm is a good one because it doesn't have too much motion to it and it forces us to just kind of sit there and listen a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, like if you want people to like absolutely lose it, dance super hard at this particular moment, then yeah, we're gonna need more active drums. But to me, this almost sounds like not quite that style of track, like still a festival track, but more so the one where everyone holds their lighters up, you know, like sways back and forth a little bit, half the people are crying, that sort of stuff, right? But I do think we could still get a little bit more rhythm and movement in that drop. And you're saying it went a little harder in the second drop. We'll take a quick listen to that. But with this first one, so let's pay attention to those hi-hats. Right, ta 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 ta. I think you could get a little bit more push and pull out of there. So like pull some of those extra notes, like the ones that are behind the grid, push those or pull those back even more. For the ones ahead of the grid, push them forward just that little bit if you can. Yeah, if you can get them like just like separated a little bit more. I don't know if you need like necessarily trappy or like even a faster rhythm. Just instead of like da 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 da, maybe it's like da 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 da, right? Like with a little bit more of that kind of swing, that extra push and pull. And the other big thing for this kind of rhythm to work in this style of track, don't just like, you know, make a measure and then copy it over for the next 4. You're going to want a little bit of variation across that entire little bit of drop. Like if we're really trying to pull people back, hit them kind of in the feels and stuff, we have that really human, that very expressive version of playing the drums. If this is kind of something that you guys are interested in, I'd recommend listen to Jay Dilla and some of his old beats and stuff. You know, he's one of the pioneers of really strong groove and stuff. And the way he plays with that push and pull in his hi-hats is exactly the kind of rhythm that I'm talking about here. Let's see. Seeing some other, you know, suggestions here. Maybe a little wobble, start of the saw layers for some rhythm. Maybe a little bit of automation to kill the sound completely, like a hard sidechain. Yeah, all of those sorts of things. Really cool, creative ideas. Give them a shot and stuff. Now, the one thing I'll say, like, don't do everything that you just saw in the chat. Like, pick and choose from them because we can very quickly overcomplicate this style song. Like, a lot of what makes this work is how simple and slow it is, right? Like, that's what hits us in the feels. If we add too much extra motion to it, you know, especially early on, we're going to give up that feeling. And like, that's what the remix would be for, right? Like if you get a remix of this track that's supposed to be super dancey and stuff, but whatever that intention is, make sure that we're sticking to that through and through. Tell you what, let's just really quickly listen to a bit of this last drop, see what's up with that. I do think on this final drop, you actually probably could increase the pace of those hi-hats. Like try out some trap rolls, some 16th or 32nd patterns, that sort of stuff for sure. Oh, before that last one. Yeah, that was it. Really, really cool stuff. Bring out those hi-hats in this section because everything else is so new and so unique and stuff. We need something that's going to really tie us to the rest of that song, so bring those hi-hats forward here. All right, great stuff, Dylan. Killer, beautiful track. Let's hear it up for him in the chat. Dylan is not only a graduate of the masterclass, he's helping out a lot with it, guys. So yeah, huge shouts to him. He's come a long way since I first heard his music too. Super lush. I think we can expect some pretty big things from him pretty soon. Okay, let's get time for one more track here. This one's from Maru, Kurahi. Hopefully I'm saying that one correctly. Another graduate of the masterclass, another person to keep eyes on. I can say without even hearing this one, guys, we're about to hear some heat. So let's see what we got. Cool textures from the start. I would actually like a little bit of a splash, something with that extra bit of movement that we've been talking about today. Oh, what up? Didn't realize we had you in here, Joseph. Great groove here. Maybe a little earlier on, try to get a little bit more motion in those pads to hint at the groove. Nice. This reminds me of some Sultan and Shepherd. Really good vibe here. Beautiful vibes. All right, let's see what we got going on at the end. Those little like new those art players that just came in, that or that plucked layer, I think that could benefit from some more side chaining here. And actually just the whole mix in general could get a little bit more kind of like up and down, just do some side chain bumping in there. Seeing some requests for some remixes here. Nice. All right. Really cool track, really good vibe. Yeah, really good prog house sort of, development to it. The sound choice is on point. I think the biggest thing to focus on, let's thicken things up and make it more lush. So specifically in that main lead that's playing around, I'd like more reverb, more delay, maybe a little bit more texture, like with some saturation, like a coloring saturator, like Decapitator, but something with some automation to it. Like I don't want it to just be constantly grittier and beefier, but a few notes here and there to just kind of get it to pop out just that little bit extra, I think are gonna, absolutely crush it. Yeah, so suggestions for some vocal, yeah, that could definitely work. Some filter automation on the main lead, absolutely. One or two more new notes, suggestion from Claudia here during that, melody in the build. Yeah, so we were actually talking about, I think there was the very first track that we started today off with. We had an art pattern, and I was like, hey, let's get a couple of notes to kind of stand out, just that little bit extra. Same thing here. Give them just that one little moment that keeps them on their toes here. All right, guys, really great track here. Good stuff, Joseph. Give it up for Maru here in the chat. And with that, we are going to have to wrap it up. I know we still have, a few others that I didn't get to today. Like I said at the start of the chat, if we didn't get to you today, you are first on my list for next week. Now, if you want to actually be considered for next week, you do have to submit a track next Friday. I won't be like revisiting previous Feedback Friday threads. I want to keep it available for the people that are staying on top of it. But if you do get that track, like if you skip a week or something, but then you do come back in next Feedback Friday, you're still going to be at the top of the list. So if you want feedback on these streams, guys, make sure you're in that EDM Tips Facebook group right here. It's the EDM Tips Academy members only. You do have to be, enrolled in an EDM Tips course to be able to join it. But if you are and you aren't in this Facebook group, feel free to reach out to us, shoot us an email. We'll make sure to get you in there. And then within that, we have these Feedback Friday threads. So this is where the magic happens. Drop your tracks in here, take part, give each other feedback, get feedback on your own tracks. It's been an awesome place to grow. So yeah, that'll be how you guys, get a little bit more. If you want to get involved with this, that's how. Now, finally, same thing as last time, guys. If you want to like really keep this going, if you want to get super in-depth feedback, so right now we did like something like 10 to 15 tracks in an hour. If you want that entire hour or longer, really kind of dedicated to you, consider joining the masterclass. We have a full 8-week program built out that teaches you really how to, tackle every single aspect of your productions, from the writing to the sound selection and sound design, all the way to the mixing, mastering, and then marketing of your music project. So if it's something that interests you, check that out. You can find it on the EDM Tips website. And let's see, I should have had this pulled up. But if you just go to edmtips.com, go to the courses, you can find out more about it. Always feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to talk more about it, give you a little bit of tips. It's been a blast working with everyone that's been through it. I hope to see some more of you there. And lastly, you can find a link to that just in this Twitch channel, or on my Twitch channel. If you check out my links, you can learn a little bit more about it there. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. It has been an awesome time. One last thing, if you aren't already subscribed to the Twitch channel, consider subscribing. Before long, we're actually going to start adding even more to this. So right now we're doing the Feedback Fridays. In the future, we're going to have extra things like production streams, maybe some beat labs, that sort of stuff. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can keep posted when that comes up. Thanks for tuning in. Any chance these streams will get longer to keep up with all the demos? No, unfortunately not. That is what we have that masterclass for. We got to make sure that they're still, getting their value and stuff. So if you want that extra attention, definitely consider, joining that. Guys, thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for all the, the love, the participation, and the hype in the chat. This has been a blast. I'm stoked to keep these going. Guys, take care. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend ahead. I will see you guys in the group.